Welcome to a brand new show here on Movie Film. We're going to count down the 100 greatest ever movies, the definitive list, the undisputed list. Let's get started. So we've got to kick it off strong with a great movie. We've got to set the tone for the entire list. And that's why for number 100, we've chosen The Big Lebowski. The Big Lebowski, of course, was made by the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen, stars Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, and a whole host of well-known faces. The film is about a man named Jeff Lebowski.
Wait, let me explain something to you. I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Sorry, El Duderino, who has his own property destroyed after he's confused for a man of the same name, a millionaire of the same name. And of course, he wants restitution. This ends up with him trying to find the real Big Lebowski's wife who's gone missing. It's a hell of a movie, it's a hell of a story, and it sets the tone for the start of this list. And also, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is in it. It's a hell of a movie, and if you haven't seen it, what the hell have you been doing with your life? Moving on. Some movies on this list are going to divide opinion. That's guaranteed. But there can be no dispute on the next one. Number 99 is Cool Runnings.
Feel the rhythm! Feel the rhyme! Get on up! It's bobsled time! Cool Runnings!
Directed by John Turteltaub, who you may know from National Treasure, National Treasure 2, Three Ninjas, The Meg, not that Meg, The Meg. It was a movie about a shark. A movie about a shark's never going to work. Oh yeah, Sharknado. Cool Runnings starred Leon, Dougie Doug, Raleigh Lewis, and Malik Yoba, as well as John Candy. The film, if you don't know, is about the Jamaican bobsleigh team and their hopes through getting into the Winter Olympics. It's a laugh-out-loud comedy at points, which will also pull at your heartstrings, and if you do not like Cool Runnings, there is something seriously wrong with you as a human being. You need to look at yourself in the mirror. And we're going to move on to number 98. Number 98 on the list is again a 90s movie. But this 90s movie, arguably one of the greatest movies ever made because of the lasting effect of the movie. Because anybody who watched this movie instantly became paranoid after watching it. That movie, of course, is The Truman Show. Directed by Peter Weir, starring Jim Carrey as an insurance salesman whose life is a reality show unbeknownst to him. Yeah, it kind of got us all paranoid. Maybe that movie's all about me. Maybe that movie was made as an intentional message sent to me to let me know my life's really a reality show. Maybe behind every mirror in my house is a camera. Maybe they're watching me right now. Well, yeah, there's a camera there, I know there what. There might be people watching, I don't know. But then again, maybe some of us do have reason to be paranoid. I'm talking to you, Paul. I think I just freaked the fuck out of someone called Paul. If I did, let me know. I really want to know. Back to The Truman Show, hell of a movie. As I say, the lasting effect is real. Because, who knows? If you haven't seen The Truman Show, it's definitely one of Jim Carrey's best performances in any movie. Known for his comedic elements, this movie also has dramatic elements and will pull at your heartstrings just like Cool Runnings did. Great movie, Cool Runnings. Great movie. Number 97. And before I reveal it, I'm going to let you have a guess what number 97 is. Here's some facts. It's directed by George Lucas. Did you just say Star Wars? You're wrong. It's American Graffiti.
I like the color of your car there, man. What's that supposed to be? Sort of a cross between piss yellow and puke green, ain't it?
Well, you call that a paint job, but it's pretty ugly. I bet you got to sneak up on the pumps just to get a little air in your tires.
Well, at least I don't have to pull over to the side just to let a funeral go by, man.
Oh, funny.
You know what?
Your car's uglier than I am. That didn't come out right.
Now, George Lucas has made many films apart from Star Wars. One which comes to mind is Howard the Duck, with a woman to a duck. It's weird. But American Graffiti is a fantastic movie. Something completely different from George Lucas if you're only known from Star Wars and Indiana Jones. The story of a group of friends who are basically having their last hurrah before heading off to college in the 60s. Some great visuals in there and a pretty good cast with Ron Howard and Richard Dreyfuss in there. Solid movie, and if you haven't checked it out, it's a must-see for any George Lucas fans. It's pretty good at making movies. In number 95, easily one of the most iconic films of all time, The Terminator. Okay, iconic character, I guess. Terminator, of course, directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and a few other people. Now, some people prefer T2, but without the Terminator, we wouldn't have had T2, or T3, or Terminator Salvation, or Terminator Genesis, or Terminator Dark Fate, which kind of fucked up the whole timeline. Terminator 1 was a pretty good movie. You know, Terminator 2 was pretty good too, but for now we're going with Terminator 1 at number 95. Moving on. In at number 94 is our first animated film, and there will be plenty because I'm a big child and I love animated films. That's pretty much the reason they're on the list. Number 94 is Inside Out.
What the heck is that?
Who puts broccoli on pizza? That's it. I'm done.
Congratulations, San Francisco. You've ruined pizza. First the Hawaiians, and now you.
Inside Out, Pixar film, the animation was always going to be fantastic. But this one is a story with real heart, which also helps explain to kids all about emotions. It's an interesting concept, seeing inside a child's head and having the emotions control that person. Really well told story, really unique story, and one of Pixar's best films to date. Certainly deserves a place on this list. Disagree? Don't. No arguments. Shut up. Comments. See you later. Number 93. This episode has some big hit films on it. When we're already in the 90s, just imagine how good this list is going to be. Coming in at number 93, Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. Remember when Star Wars films used to be good? That was great. Of course, Return of the Jedi was directed by... No, not George Lucas. Richard Marquand. Yep. Unfortunately, Mr. Marquand died in 1987 at the tender young age of 49. But he made a hell of a movie. He's actually made a good Star Wars movie, which seems harder than you think based on recent events. The film stars Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, all those guys. And it rounds off one of the best sci-fi trilogies ever made. And the weird thing is, there's some people who don't like it. And why don't they like it? Ewoks. Who the hell doesn't like Ewoks? Kick-ass little bears who prove that size is no disadvantage. Fun fact, Ewoks were in the film because the costume designers were too lazy to make Wookiee costumes, or they didn't have the budget. Something like that. They just felt it was too much, so they made shorter ones. Little Wookiees. Awesome. Star Wars The Last Jedi takes number 93, but what takes number 92? In number 92, arguably Eddie Murphy's best movie, Coming to America. Coming to America is a laugh-out-loud comedy directed by John Landis, of course starring Eddie Murphy, James Earl Jones, and Arsenio Hall, amongst many others, including Samuel L. Jackson. The film is hilarious from start to finish and will have you just in absolute agony from laughing so hard.
I have recently been placed in charge of garbage. Do you have any that requires disposal?
No, it's totally empty.
Well, when it fills up, don't be afraid to call me. I'll come take it out most urgently.
That's good to know.
When you think of garbage, think of Akeem.
Watch Coming to America if you haven't already. On to the next one. In at number 91, Seven. Or as it's written on the poster, Seven. Seven was directed by David Fincher, stars Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, loads of people, and it's basically a thriller about a killer who commits his crimes based on the 7 deadly sins. Stars Brad Pitt as a new detective who's kind of getting pinned for all the stuff, and then ultimately stuff happens. There's something in a box. It's a pretty good movie, check it out. I don't make it sound great, but it's pretty good. In at number 90, we've got Training Day. Training Day, directed by Antoine Fuqua. I think that's how we say his name. Apologies if I got that wrong. Also starring Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. Antoine Fuqua and Denzel Washington later worked together on stuff like The Equalizer and The Magnificent Seven, the reboot, which isn't on this list. But they have worked together pretty well down the years. Training Day was a standout point. It's become a cult classic film down the years. And it's really good storytelling. It's a really engaging watch. It's one of those films that when you sit down and watch it, you just get engaged in the story, you just get locked in, and by the end of it you go, wow, that went by really quickly. It's a really, really good movie, and if you have not seen Training Day, put it on your list of things to watch. If it's on Netflix or Amazon or whatever you watch movies on.
Congratulations, son. You're gonna get a Medal of Valor for this.
I didn't shoot him.
A room full of cops said you did.
But I didn't. You did.
A Los Angeles Police Department narcotics officer was killed today, serving a high-risk warrant in Echo Park.
And breaking into the 80s with a film from the 90s, in at number 89, Dumb and Dumber. Maybe a controversial choice. Some people will say the films I've listed already could be seen as better than this film. But this film will have you laughing from start to finish. One of the best comedies ever made, one of the best performances ever from Jim Carrey, and also from Jeff Daniels is pretty damn good in this movie. The film was directed by the Farrelly brothers, or I keep calling them the Farrelly brothers, that's probably not right either. It's one of those. You can look it up on IMDb if you really want to. It's just a hilarious movie from start to finish. If you need a good laugh and you haven't for some reason seen it, check out Dumb and Dumber.
What do you think the chances are of a guy like you and a girl like me ending up together?
Well, Lloyd, that's difficult to say, and we really don't...
Hit me with it. Just give it to me straight. I came a long way just to see you married. Just, least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
Not good.
In number 88 on the list is The Hustler. The Hustler is a film from 1961 directed by Robert Rose and starring Paul Newman, and it's all about a game of pool. An up-and-coming player challenges a champion pool player to a game, and as you might guess from the title, a hustle happens. The movie was later preceded by a sequel of sorts in the shape of The Color of Money, which starred Tom Cruise, which is also a great movie, but for now, number 88 is The Hustler. Now, along the way on this list, you're going to those movies that I personally have placed in the list because I'm a genius and I know all the best movies. The next movie, some people might think it shouldn't be on the list. Those people are all wrong. This movie should definitely be on the list. Number 87 is The Muppets Take Manhattan. The Muppets Take Manhattan stars everybody's favourite Muppets. Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Fozzie, Rolf, Rizzo, Gil, Bill, Jill. The Muppets Take Manhattan is all about the Muppets trying to take their show to Broadway, trying to make it big. Along the way, Kermit has a terrible accident and heartbreakingly forgets all the Muppets. It's terrible. Just pulls at your heartstrings. Even as a big manly man, you'll still be bawling your eyes out going, he forgot the Muppets. Muppets Take Manhattan is a fantastic movie. It was directed by Frank Oz, and Frank Oz, for those of you that don't know, is very important in the history of cinema. Because Frank Oz not only was puppeteering some of the Muppets and voicing some of the Muppets, he also did some Sesame Street characters, but he also was the voice of Yoda in every Star Wars film that Yoda's appeared in. Pretty important. Muppets Take Manhattan is very deservedly on this list, and I will fight any man that wants to say that it's not. Moving on. Number 86 and the final entry for today's video, The Wolf of Wall Street. Now, it's very well known that Martin Scorsese is a phenomenal filmmaker, and that Leonardo DiCaprio is a pretty good actor. Those two together have made some fantastic films down the years. The Wolf of Wall Street was no exception. Fantastic film all about how Leonardo DiCaprio got rich.
You know, I think we live in the same building.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, 12th floor?
Yeah, what floor are you on?
4th floor. Married to little kids.
Right.
Ugly wife. Yeah. So what do you do, bro?
What do you mean, what do I do?
For work, what do you do?
I'm a stockbroker.
Stockbroker?
Yeah.
Children's furniture.
Oh, good for you.
It's all right. You make a lot of money?
Yeah, I do all right for myself.
Pretty sure that's what it's about. I'm not going to ruin the story for you. This is the worst movie ever. I'm not going to run down the whole story. But The Wolf of Wall Street is certainly a phenomenal film, and certainly won't be the last Martin Scorsese film on this list. Oh, that was fast. Number 85 is a fantastic movie. It's a movie starring a person who's an actor who also directed the movie. That movie is Braveheart. Now, I know there's a lot of Scottish people out there who are probably going, why is this only number 85? This should be like in top 10. Because, you know, stereotypes, every Scottish person likes Iron Brew and Braveheart. Pretty accurate. It's like every Irish person knows a leprechaun and loves Guinness. That's pretty much true. But moving on, Braveheart is a fantastic story. Directed by Mel Gibson, starring Mel Gibson. It's got Mel Gibson with face paint. Mel Gibson's on a horse. He's telling people about freedom. They go get freedom, and now Scotland's part of the UK. Moving on. Number 84 is the first horror film on the list, unless you count Seven as a horror film, but it's not really a horror film. The first horror film on the list, or thriller, psychological thriller, I guess, maybe, it's kind of, is Get Out. Jordan Peele's directorial debut shocked a lot of people because, you know, Jordan Peele, Michael Keegan-Key for some very good comedy, brings out a film that was damn good.
Such homebodies. Yes, but even when you go into the city, I've just had no interest. The chores have become my sanctuary. Get out. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Get out!
It's a damn good movie, especially for your first directorial debut. I'm sure he's made other films, he's made other content, obviously, so he knew what he was doing. But it's a very good story. Let us know what you think. Have you seen Get Out? Do you think it deserves to be in the 100 greatest movies ever? We certainly do, and that's all that matters. Moving on. Another first on the list, the first sports movie on the list. Because, you know, sports movies are always phenomenal. Always. Everyone. But this movie in particular is a fantastic, fantastic movie. That movie is Rocky. Boxing has made for some great movies. The Fighter, Raging Bull, and most importantly, for this section of this video, Rocky. Of course, starring Sylvester Stallone, written by Sylvester Stallone. Our first glimpse at the Italian stallion in action. This film was so good it spawned multiple sequels. Beyond multiple sequels. What's it, 8 Rocky films, 20 Rocky films? We've had a lot of Rocky films.
Think, Bart. Where have you seen Roman numerals before? I know. Rocky V. That was the 5th one. So, Rocky 5 plus Rocky 2 equals Rocky 7, Adrian's Revenge!
To the point where it's probably gone too much, especially when you include the Creed films. But Rocky 1 started it all. An iconic film, an iconic soundtrack, some great moments, and a hell of a lot of Rocky montages. If for some reason, in particular the first 5, if you haven't seen the first 5 Rocky movies, you're in for a treat. Sit down, watch them all one by one, and have a hell of a good time. Moving on. Number 82 on this list is a movie I can watch over and over and over again. Directed by Harold Ramis and starring the great Bill Murray, it's Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is a movie about a man who keeps repeating the same day over and over again. Groundhog Day is a movie about a man who keeps repeating the same day over and over again. Groundhog Day is about a man who keeps repeating the same day over and over again. You see what I did there? Comic genius. No one's done that before when talking about Groundhog Day. Bill Murray puts in a star turn, and this is one of his most iconic films. And I recently just found out that there's a VR video game sequel. Definitely gonna have to check it out soon, because Groundhog Day is definitely one of my favorite films ever made.
What was that again?
I'm a god.
You're a god.
I'm a god. I'm not the god. I don't think.
Because you survived a car wreck?
You folks ready to order?
I didn't just survive a wreck. I wasn't just blown up yesterday. I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
And every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I am an immortal.
Number 81, again, could be a controversial choice. If you think it's controversial, you're watching the wrong list. Number 81 is Who Framed Roger Rabbit? The film by Back to the Future director Robert Zemeckis, which stars Bob Hoskins and Christopher Lloyd, is one of the best interactions between animation and live action. It's a hell of a good story with a hell of a lot of laughs. And if you haven't watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you seriously need to do that, because it's definitely going to become one of your guilty pleasures. Number 81 on the list. An interesting turn of events, we started the last one with a Scottish film, and now we're starting with a Scottish film in Trainspotting. The Danny Boyle masterpiece will give you a real lust for life. This movie has some of the most hilarious scenes in the history of cinema, and if you haven't seen Trainspotting, come on. Do you even like movies if you haven't seen Trainspotting? It's a hell of a movie. Still haven't watched the sequel though, so. Now along the way, not everyone's going to agree with movies that are on the list, and I'm pretty sure this one is going to split opinion. Because number 79 is Anchorman, the legend of Ron Burgundy.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Now, this is definitely a personal choice. Some people will love this movie, some people, for some reason, won't like this movie. But if you've never seen this movie will give you some side-splitting laughs. Easily one of the most quotable movies ever.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Iconic dialogue all the way through. Hell of a movie. If you haven't seen Anchorman, I've seen me saying if you haven't seen a lot, maybe you should stop doing that in the list. Anchorman, the legend of Ron Burgundy. Once you don't take it too seriously, it's a pretty damn good movie.
Loud noises!
And it's the one movie that taught us what San Diego truly means.
Discovered by the Germans in 1904, they named it San Diego, which of course in German means a whale's vagina.
Number 78 also stars Steve Carell, who starred in Anchorman. Number 78 is The Big Short. The Big Short is about the financial collapse that, ruined loads of people's lives. It's about the bankers who kind of blew everything up. We know Steve Carell for his comedy work in the likes of The Office and Anchorman, but he puts in a great dramatic turn in this role and shows a great range. And while this list isn't the 100 greatest Steve Carell movies, this certainly is one of his top 5 performances. Not only Steve Carell, there's some great actors in there as well, including Christian Bale, puts in another great turn, not as Batman. And The Big Short, in my opinion, is a truly great movie and is fully deserving of its place on this list. But we move on. So far on the list, we've had one animated film, that was Inside Out. Now we're getting another Pixar movie, WALL-E.
Wow.
If you don't like WALL-E, you might not be human. I know I'm a grown-up, but I still love animation, so maybe I'm not a grown-up. Animated films are fantastic, and WALL-E is a great movie with a great story, unique story. It even stars the late great Fred Willard in an interesting cameo. The lovable little robot has become an iconic character in recent years. WALL-E is a great character, a great movie. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's definitely a movie that you need to watch. And we're flying through this list now because we're now down to number 76. Number 76 is a truly iconic movie, The Matrix. As referenced in a previous video on this channel, The Matrix could have been very different because the role of Neo was initially offered to Will Smith. That could be an entirely different movie. But The Matrix was a truly standout movie. It was something completely different from what we'd seen before. At the time, some of the special effects were groundbreaking. And the movie itself was fantastic. Arguably one of Keanu Reeves' best, although he's got some pretty damn good work, apart from John Wick 2, that wasn't very good. But The Matrix, certainly one of the best films ever made. In number 75 on the list is a must-see movie every single Christmas, Home Alone. Home Alone was directed by Christopher Columbus. It's pretty impressive that he made the 2 Home Alone films and discovered America. Amazing. The film starred Macaulay Culkin and Joe Pesci and the other guy, and simply, as I've already stated, a must-see every single Christmas. It's a fantastic film. It's got some good comedy in there. It taught us all what to do when we were kids if we were left home alone at Christmas because our parents didn't like us.
I'm going.
1, 2, 10.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Decent movie. Coming in at number 74 on the list, Catch Me If You Can. Catch Me If You Can was directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. On paper, already you can tell it's a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, knowing it was made by Spielberg, has Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio in there, it was always going to be a fantastic film. Throughout the film, Tom Hanks is chasing down Leo, who's a bit of a con man. It's a really well told story, as with most Spielberg films.
Well, tough luck, Carl. 5 minutes earlier, you would have landed yourself a pretty good collar.
It's all right. 10 seconds later, and you'd have been shot. Mind if I come downstairs with you? I gotta take a look at this guy.
Sure thing. Just do me a favor and sit tight for a second while I get this evidence downstairs. You know, I don't want some maid walking through here and making the bed. LAPD should be here any sec.
Wait. Your wallet.
And certainly won't be the last Spielberg film on the list, the last Tom Hanks film on the list, or the last Leo film on the list. Catch Me If You Can is a fantastic movie which you should watch if you can. I just said a second ago, Catch Me If You Can won't be the last Leonardo DiCaprio film on the list. Immediately that's true, because number 73 is Shutter Island.
Crazy people, they're the perfect subjects. They talk, nobody listens. I stood at dark hour. We saw what human beings are capable of doing to each other, right? For Christ's sakes, we fought a goddamn war to stop them, and now I find out it may be happening here, on our soil? No.
So what are you really here to do, Ted?
I'm gonna get the proof. I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna blow the lid off this place.
Shutter Island, made by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, keeps you guessing, keeps you on the edge of your seat all the way through. Similar in many ways to Inception, the way that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And a great performance by Leo makes it a must-watch movie. Moving on. In at number 72, it might be a big surprise, because, you know, big, strong, manly man. Number 72, we've gone with West Side Story. 1961 film directed by Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise, won 10 Academy Awards. 10 Academy Awards. Don't really need to say much more, do I? One of the best musicals ever made. If musicals are your thing and you haven't seen West Side Story, you should get on that. The film is currently being remade. It's being rebooted by one Steven Spielberg, which is due out, I think it's next year, but maybe because of the delays, because of the whole, you know, world being fucked, might be a little while later till we get that. It was already a pretty good film, but now you're adding Steven Spielberg to the mix. The remake is sure to be amazing. On to 71. In at number 71, undoubtedly one of the funniest films ever made, Airplane.
Excuse me, sir. There's been a little problem in the cockpit.
The cockpit? What is it?
It's the little room in the front of the plane where the pilots sit.
Interesting thing about Airplane, it has 3 directors. Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker. It's quite unusual to find films nowadays to have 3 different directors. The film stars comedic legend Leslie Nielsen in one of his best performances ever.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
The film's pretty good. And if you need a laugh, Airplane is definitely the way to go. Although you might not get on a plane again. In at 70, arguably the greatest romantic comedy / romantic film ever made, When Harry Met Sally. The film was directed by Rob Reiner, the same guy who made This Is Spinal Tap. Of course, stars Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, and is considered a cult classic by many people around the world as one of the best romantic films ever. And certainly has one of the most famous scenes ever made in cinema. Even if you haven't seen When Harry Met Sally, chances are you've either seen the most famous scene from it or you've seen a recreation of that scene.
Oh, yes! 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 Oh! Yes! 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 Oh! 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 Oh, God. Oh.
I'll have what she's having.
Certainly an iconic film, and certainly deserves its place on this list. Moving on. Graduating us into the 60s is The Graduate. The 1967 film was directed by Mike Nichols and stars Dustin Hoffman. The film is about a college graduate who finds himself torn between his older lover and her daughter. The Graduate was nominated for 7 Academy Awards in 1968 and won the award for Best Director, which just goes to show it's a hell of a movie. Check it out if you haven't, and we're going to move on to number 68. Hitting the list at number 68, Silver Linings Playbook. Silver Linings Playbook was a romantic drama comedy. It was pretty unique, had a unique spin.
You know what? Forget I offered to help you. Forget the entire fucking idea.
Because that must have been fucking crazy. Because I am so much crazier than you.
Keep your voice down.
I'm just the crazy slut with a dead husband. Forget it!
Shut the fuck up.
You shut
Tiffany!
the fuck up.
Hey, Tiffany!
Based on a novel of the same name by Matthew Quick. It was written and directed by David O. Russell. The film starred Jennifer Lawrence, Bradley Cooper, Robert De Niro, Chris Tucker, and many, many more. Two main actors, Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, who had a great chemistry in this film, great performances, and the story was something slightly unique, as I've already mentioned. Certainly a film to check out, even if you don't like romantic films. This might change your opinion. Moving on to number 67. Number 67 on the list was directed by Christopher Nolan, and it stars Christian Bale and Scarlett Johansson. So no, it's not a Batman movie. It also stars Hugh Jackman, and that movie is The Prestige. 2006 Christopher Nolan film is about two magicians who are constantly trying to outdo each other and who are trying to come up with the ultimate illusion. There's a lot to this movie. It's even got a little bit of sci-fi to it, as do many Christopher Nolan films. Perhaps one of the slightly lesser known Christopher Nolan films, although the people who have seen it love it. Moving on to number 66. Number 66 on the list has a very deceptive title, because the title of number 66 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and I really wish it was The Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Harrison Ford, of course, as Indiana Jones, and Sean Connery's in there, so there's a few other people. It's one of the Indiana Jones films, thankfully the one without Shia LaBeouf in it. In the 1989 film, Indiana Jones' father goes missing while looking for the Holy Grail, and Indy has to go find him. Once again, as per most Indiana Jones films, not all of them because the fourth one, terrible. As with most Indiana Jones films, it's a great adventure film with some good comedy in there and great performances from Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, as you would expect.
This is intolerable! This could be close! Faster, boy, faster!
There was no way this list wasn't going to have Indy on it at some point. And there's no way he won't be on it again at some point. Number 65 on the list is the first foreign language film on the list, City of God. The 2002 film was directed by Fernando Meirelles and Katia Lund. Probably said both those names wrong, I apologise if I did. The film is about two kids who take completely different paths in life. One of them ends up becoming a bit of a kingpin and one of them struggles a little bit more. Even if foreign language films aren't your thing, the one foreign language film to watch in your lifetime is City of God, and it certainly deserves a place on this list. I'm sure most people who have seen it will argue it should be higher on the list. Well, it's not. Get over it. Number 64 on the list is directed by one of my personal favourite directors at the moment, Edgar Wright. The film is Baby Driver. The film is more or less a heist film, focusing on the getaway driver, who's known as Baby, hence Baby Driver. Very disappointed when I watched it that it wasn't about a baby who could drive, but the story we got instead was pretty good too.
For God's sakes, Griff, leave the kid alone.
You can't just be in crime, right? Not without being a little criminal. I just want to find out what's going on between those ears. Aside, of course, from Egyptian reggae.
What's it matter to you?
Just think that he thinks he's better than us. He wants to sit there in his car, keep his white shirt clean while the rest of us, we roll in the dirt.
Edgar Wright's use of music in this film is standout in this film. You know, he's always been known for unique transitions and pretty solid filmmaking. The way he uses music in this film to transition between scenes is pretty spectacular. The film was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. I'd argue it should have got more. I personally think it's Edgar Wright's best film. It's a star-studded cast and it's a movie you need to see. Number 63 is a film from the 80s with a cast that includes Bill Murray, Sigourney Weaver, Dan Aykroyd. You probably have it already. It's Ghostbusters. I could have kept listing actors, we would have been here all day. Ghostbusters, there's no doubt, is one of the best films ever made. It's hilarious.
People think they're seeing ghosts,
And they call these bozos who conveniently show up to deal with the problem with a fake electronic light show.
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
They caused an explosion. Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
It was unique for the time, and even still, when you see a ghost, who are you going to call? Well, don't call the Ghostbusters. They're too old now. It's far too old. And I'm just going to ignore the reboot they did a couple of years ago and just stick with the old guys. Moving on. I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about the next movie, because the next movie, number 62, is Fight Club. Now, if you've seen Fight Club, you'll know why I can't talk about Fight Club. So, on to the next one. The next movie, number 61 on the list, is a Tom Hanks movie from the 90s. Now, you're probably saying most movies from the 90s had Tom Hanks in it. Yeah, pretty much. This movie, however, is an iconic movie. A movie where we got one of the most iconic lines, a line that's repeated by pretty much everybody even still. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, except for here where we know we're getting Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump, phenomenal tale. Phenomenal story, phenomenal movie, phenomenal performance from Tom Hanks.
I told you if you were ever a shrimp boat captain that I'd be your first mate. Well, here I am. I am a man of my word.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't you be thinking that I'm gonna be calling you sir.
No, sir.
My boat.
The second film on this list from Robert Zemeckis. That guy really knows how to make movies. A fantastic movie from start to finish. If for some reason you haven't seen Forrest Gump, there's no hope for you. The next movie on the list is technically the first sequel of a film that's already been on the list, because number 60 is T2 Judgment Day. James Cameron directed film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. In my opinion, many people's opinion, is better than the original Terminator. It's the most iconic of all the films. Obviously, it was the last good Terminator as well, as I mentioned when I spoke about Terminator. It's the one that if you watch when you're a kid, like when I did, it gives you nightmares about a cop chasing you and being immortal and being able to kill you with like his sword hand. Pretty good movie. The next one on the list, I thought about including on the list, I took off the list and I put back on the list. That movie is American Beauty. Movie starring Mina Savari and Kevin Spacey, directed by Sam Mendes. The film is about a man who becomes infatuated with his daughter's best friend. It's a hell of a movie, some great visuals in there and a great twist ending. And a movie I'd highly recommend. But for now, we'll move on. In at number 58, the first Quentin Tarantino film on the list, Reservoir Dogs. I don't think I need to say much about Reservoir Dogs and why it's on the list. Everybody who's anybody knows Reservoir Dogs is a fantastic movie.
Let me just get this straight. You don't ever tip, huh?
I don't tip because society says I have to. All right, I mean, I'll tip if somebody really deserves a tip. If they really put forth the effort, I'll give them something extra. But I mean, it's tipping automatically. It's for the birds. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're just doing their job.
Hey, this girl was nice.
She was okay. I mean, she wasn't anything special.
What's special? Take you in the back and suck your dick?
I'd go over 12% for that.
Great music, slow motion walking scene. That scene where the guy's ear gets cut off still gives me nightmares. Some great performances by some great actors, phenomenal casting, and a kind of minimalist film given that most of it takes place in a warehouse. Fantastic movie. Check it out if you haven't. Moving on to the next one. There has already been many animated films on this list, well, 2 or 3, but this one is certainly one of the most iconic films of all time. I want to say from the beginning, I'm putting the original in, not the recent reboot. The movie is The Lion King.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope.
But Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
Not saying anything bad about the reboot, the live-action remake was actually pretty impressive, but you gotta stick to the original here, because the original is the one that makes us all fall in love with the Lion King, the little lion named Simba. Lion King, one of the greatest films ever made. It's surprising how many of these films have James Earl Jones in them at some point. Number 56 on the list is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Arguably Jack Nicholson's best ever performance.
There's Racket, look! Look! The chief put his hand up! The chief put his hand up, look, he voted. Would you please turn the television set on? The chief has got his hand up right there. The chief voted. Now, will you please turn the television set on?
Mr. McMurphy, the meeting was adjourned and the vote was closed.
But the vote was 10-8. The chief, he's got his hand up, look!
No, Mr. McMurphy. When the meeting was adjourned, the vote was 9-9.
Of course, it's The Shining, but this one's right up there with that movie. The 1975 film takes place in a mental institution, and if you haven't seen it, when you do finally watch it, you might be surprised how many of the scenes you're familiar with. A lot of pop culture shows down the years have repeated scenes or taken characters like Nurse Ratched.
I'm Nurse Ratched. Please come with me, won't you?
And there's a lot of moments from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest spread across pop culture. So you might have seen a lot of the iconic moments of this film without even realising that you've seen them. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, directed by Milos Forman, is a great movie. Number 55 is yet another movie that made us all paranoid. Because is the movie even over yet? Who knows? Is that top still spinning? Number 55 is Inception. Certainly one of the more unique films we've had in the last 20 years. I think the majority of the people that watched it loved it. Some people didn't like it, wasn't their taste. Inception, fantastic movie from start to finish, which keeps you on the edge of your seat all the way through. A truly unique look at time.
You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
We're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm.
On top of that, some great performances, a totally unique story, and of course it's a Christopher Nolan film. They're pretty damn good. We're almost at the final 50 films, so we're getting down to some of the most iconic movies ever. This is the point where it's getting really tough to pick which position to give each film, because while you can list 100 movies, ranking them is a whole other thing. So it began to get really tough at number 54. Number 54 is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The iconic Steven Spielberg film, a masterpiece of cinema, and still one of everybody's favourite aliens. Up there with Alf and Gizmo. Gizmo an alien? Gizmo's probably an alien. A phenomenal movie, which, as I've said many times on this list about many movies, pulls at your heartstrings. It's got its comedic moments, its dramatic moments, and it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal movie. I can't say enough about it. It's one of my favourite films of all time.
Stay here, stay. And don't tell anybody. No, nobody. Be good, be good. Oh, God!
Elliot.
What?
Elliot.
I taught him how to talk now. He can talk now.
Hasn't quite made the top 50, but it got very close. On to number 53. You know, as I just stated before the last one, we're getting down some pretty iconic films now. On top of iconic films, iconic directors. We've had a Steven Spielberg movie, and now we're getting a John Carpenter movie. Because number 53 is The Thing. The Thing, which we featured in Original versus Reboot. John Carpenter's The Thing, one of the most beloved and iconic horror films of all time. Is it better than E.T.? You guys let me know, even though I put it higher on the list. Number 53, The Thing, iconic movie. On to the next one. Number 52 was directed by Barry Levinson. The film stars Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. You're probably starting to get the picture now. It's Rain Man. Rain Man is an 80s film which still stands up today as a fantastic movie, a fantastic story, great performances by both Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Sorry about the toothpicks. 82, 82, 82. 82 what, Ray? How much is this? Toothpicks. It's a lot more than 82 toothpicks, right? Plus 246 total. Change. Ray, How many toothpicks are there?
250.
Pretty close. Come on, let's go, Ray.
246.
There's 4 left in the box.
And definitely one of the best films ever made. Moving on to number 51. Number 51 is Parasite. Bong Joon-ho has shown himself in recent years to be a phenomenal director. I would say up and coming, but he's been on the map for a long time. If you're not aware of who he is, you should certainly check out his movies. The film won four Academy Awards just this year. Best International Film and Best Film amongst those. So yeah, it's pretty damn good. If you haven't seen Parasite, it's the one movie in particular from today's listings I would highly recommend watching. The Korean film shocked a lot of people when it won the Best Film Award, but anyone who has seen it wasn't surprised. Number 50 is Leon. Leon is a fantastic film from 1994, written and directed by Luc Besson, who you may know from The Fifth Element, which is a pretty good movie as well. The film stars Jean Reno, Gary Oldman and a very young Natalie Portman. It's a fantastic movie about a young girl who becomes an assassin's protege after her family is murdered and she's taken in by the assassin, and then ultimately learns how to become an assassin herself. All before Assassin's Creed came along too. So, pretty good. Arguably Luc Besson's best work in my opinion, although I'm sure many would argue Fifth Element is right up there. Leon's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. But now, let's move on further into the top 50. Number 49 on the list might be a bit of a surprise, but I think it's one of the most underrated films out there right now. Number 49 is Warrior. Warrior was made in 2011, directed by Gavin O'Connor, starring Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy and Nick Nolte. The film is about two brothers who ultimately enter a mixed martial arts competition and have to deal with their family issues all the way through, although Tom Hardy's kind of like, nah, fuck it. The movie is a very well told story with some phenomenal performances from Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton, but in particular from Nick Nolte.
Stop the ship! Stop the ship! Somebody! You godless son of a bitch! You stop the ship! You godless son of a bitch!
Warrior is a great movie and fully deserves its place inside the top 50 on this list. In at number 48 is a personal favourite of mine, but it's a movie you can only ever watch once. And no, it's not once. It is Memento. The film stars Guy Pearce and Carrie-Anne Moss, who you know from The Matrix. It's a very, very well told story, as you'd expect in most Christopher Nolan films. The thing is, I can't say too much about it because I want to be very careful. I'm walking on eggshells here. I don't want to say too much and ruin the movie, because if you haven't seen Memento, you need to see Memento. If there's one movie you watch this year, watch Memento, even though it's not from this year. It's a very, very good movie with a unique twist and a very interesting story behind the editing on it. Great film. I'm not going to say too much about it. On to the next one. The next movie on the list, number 47, is a great movie. It could be argued that the next movie on the list redefined this genre, or maybe even decimated this genre by being so good that no other movie could hold up to it in that genre. That movie is Shaun of the Dead.
Right. We take Pete's car, we drive over to Mum's, we go in, take care of Philip. I'm so sorry, Philip. Then we grab Mum, we go over to Liz's place, hole up, have a cup of tea, and wait for all this to blow over.
Why have we got to go to Liz's?
Because we do.
She dumped you.
I have to know if she's all right.
Why?
Because I love her.
All right, gay.
Shaun of the Dead is a zombie movie by Edgar Wright. We featured Edgar Wright previously on the list with Baby Driver. I said I personally think it's his best film, and yet here we are with Shaun of the Dead higher on the list. But there's no doubt Shaun of the Dead is a phenomenal film. The chemistry between Nick Frost and Simon Pegg made this film phenomenal. The comedy is brilliant in it, and you've still got some great action in there. You know, with Edgar Wright, you've got a fantastic filmmaker there who knows exactly what he's doing, brings his own brand of filmmaking to it, and kicked off an interesting trilogy between those three: Nick Frost, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. They made some good films together, but Shaun of the Dead, amongst that trilogy, definitely the best. On top of that, it had a pretty good soundtrack. You should check that out if you haven't. Shaun of the Dead, number 47. Number 46 on the list is by a little-known director called Martin Scorsese. That movie is The Departed. As you would expect with most Martin Scorsese films, The Departed is a phenomenal story. On top of that, you've got a star-studded cast, including Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, the list goes on. I don't need to tell you how good Scorsese is as a filmmaker. You probably won't be surprised to know he's got a few more films on this list. But personally, I think The Departed is Martin Scorsese at his brilliant best. Now, I'm not saying it's his best movie, I'm saying it's him on peak form. That film is sensational from start to finish. A great story, some great twists and turns in there. He always gets the best out of his actors. What more can I say? Great story, great actors, great filmmaking, fantastic movie. In at number 45, Jurassic Park. You can see we're not messing around today, we're getting into it really quick. Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg. You know, that guy, pretty good at making movies. Phenomenal, phenomenal movie. Although, and this might be a topic for another video at another point, they kind of need to stop making Jurassic Parks. I don't mean the movie, I mean the parks. Because it just keeps happening the same way. The dinosaurs break loose, the dinosaurs eat people. But for the first one, when it happened the very first time, it was fantastic. Some really good special effects, some great acting, some very tense scenes, some great storytelling as you'd expect, and of course, great filmmaking overall from Steven Spielberg. I don't think there's anybody out there that hasn't seen Jurassic Park. I think that tells you everything you need to know. Moving on. Now on this list, we don't discriminate. We've had a bit of everything. We've had some classics, we've had some animation, we've had some musicals, and now we have our first Marilyn Monroe film. That movie is Some Like It Hot. For me, it's one of the funniest movies I've ever watched. A movie starring Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon. This is simply a must-see movie. That's why it's in the top 50 greatest ever movies. Some Like It Hot. Maybe you don't like classic movies. Maybe for some reason you're one of those weird people that don't like black and white movies, because there is those people out there. I don't know why. Some Like It Hot will change your opinion on that. Great performance from everybody in the film. Some of the funniest scenes you will see in any movie you ever watch.
I smoke. I smoke all the time. I don't care. Well, I have a terrible past. For 3 years now, I've been living with a saxophone player. I forgive you. I can never have children. We can adopt some. But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
I can't praise it enough. It's a great movie. Certainly check it out if you haven't. And in the top 50, we've got a lot of iconic films. And that's only going to become more and more evident as we go on. This film, the next one, number 43, has one of the most iconic performances ever, one of the most iconic characters ever. That movie is The Silence of the Lambs. Did I say lamps? That's not right. Anthony Hopkins' performance as Hannibal Lecter in the 1991 film The Silence of the Lambs. Truly one of the most iconic performances ever, one of the most memorable performances ever, and one of the most quoted characters ever.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The film is about a young FBI agent played by Jodie Foster who needs the help of Hannibal Lecter, the incarcerated Hannibal Lecter, to find a serial killer who's on the loose who skins his victims alive. Yep, it's a truly outstanding movie. On to number 42. Number 42 is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Only kidding, it's not really. Calm down. For those of you that have seen or read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, hopefully you've read it instead of just seeing it because the book's far better. You'll know why I made the joke hilarious. The actual number 42 is The Sting. The 1973 film The Sting is about two grifters who are trying to pull off the ultimate con job. Starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford with some fantastic performances. This film, it'll catch you out if you haven't seen it. Nominated for 7 Academy Awards. That tells you how good it was. It won 5 of those nominations, by the way, including Best Picture in 1974. Pretty good movie. Yet another reminder of how good an actor Tom Hanks is. Number 41 is Saving Private Ryan. All the way back when we featured Catch Me If You Can on the list previously, somewhere on that playlist if you haven't seen it, I stated that Catch Me If You Can would not be the last Steven Spielberg movie or the last Tom Hanks movie, And this just goes one step further to prove that right, with another Steven Spielberg movie starring Tom Hanks. Matt Damon's in there too. That's a phenomenal movie. Yet again, just like The Sting, this movie won 5 Academy Awards. I'd happily just take one. You know, I have to make a movie, but there we go. Steven Spielberg won the Academy Award for Best Director, and well deserved for this movie, all the way back in 1999, a whole lifetime ago. If war films are your thing, Saving Private Ryan should be top of your list of movies to see. If for some reason you haven't seen it, why haven't you seen it? Go watch it. Number 40 on the list had 9 Academy Award nominations. The movie starred Robin Williams and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Stellan Skarsgård and Minnie Driver and a lot of good people. That movie is Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting was directed by Gus Van Sant, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director for this film. The film was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and they also were nominated for an award, and they even won their award. Of course, the standout performer in Good Will Hunting was the late great Robin Williams, who won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Matt Damon's pretty good in this movie too, but it's Robin Williams who is standout. Good Will Hunting, a truly phenomenal movie, takes number 40 on the list. How do you like them apples? It's getting to the point in the list where it seems every video I'm making now has at least one Martin Scorsese film in it. He's a pretty good filmmaker, what can I say? Number 39 is Raging Bull. Raging Bull is a biographical film basically, based on a book by Jake LaMotta, about Jake LaMotta, the boxer, played by Robert De Niro. Some interesting filmmaking in this one.
These are clean, whistling shots. How he can survive them, nobody knows. No man can endure this pummeling. The fight is stopped on.
Some great storytelling, great performance by Robert De Niro, as well as 8 Academy Award nominations with 2 wins, including one for Robert De Niro for his great performance. The 1980 film is certainly one of the most iconic films out there, one of the best films out there, and if you haven't watched Raging Bull, go watch it. It's good. Number 38 on the list is There Will Be Blood. I said the title kind of weird. This film, in my opinion, is great for one reason, and one reason only. Well, not only, it's a pretty damn good movie overall, but the main takeaway from this film is how good of an actor Daniel Day-Lewis is. He was truly sensational in the 2007 film. There Will Be Blood is a must-watch movie, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, the same guy who brought us Boogie Nights. Check it out, watch it, enjoy it, great movie. Number 37 on the list is a little known movie by the name of The Green Mile. The Frank Darabont film, based on a Stephen King novel starring Tom Hanks and Michael Clarke Duncan amongst many others, is a phenomenal movie. Arguably the best dramatic film ever. It's a long one. It's over 3 hours long. It's 3 hours and 9 minutes, but it's a very well told story. The standout part of this film isn't the story or the filmmaking or even Tom Hanks. The standout part of this film is the amazing performance by Michael Clarke Duncan.
I'm tired, boss. Tired of being on the road, lonely as a sparrow in the rain. I'm tired of never having me a buddy to be with, to tell me where we's going to, coming from, or why. Mostly I'm tired of people being ugly to each other. I'm tired of all the pain I feel and hear in the world every day.
He even won an Oscar for the performance. He was that damn good. If there's been anything stopping you from watching Green Mile, like you might be thinking, oh, it's way too long, split it up. Pretend it's a TV series, watch half an hour at a time, and you will not regret it. Green Mile, number 37, moving on. Number 36 on the list comes all the way from 1966. Directed by Sergio Leone, starring Clint Eastwood, number 36 is The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly. Did I just point myself out when I said The Ugly? The movie is about 2 bounty hunters who have to hunt down a third man as they all race to get a treasure buried in a cemetery in the Wild Wild West. We've all been there. We've all played Red Dead Redemption 2. You know, it's basically the same thing. Number 35 is a movie by a filmmaker called George Lucas. You're probably guessing. You might have it by now. The Phantom Menace. No. The movie is Star Wars: A New Hope. The movie that started it all. It started the entire Star Wars franchise. It got us all dreaming of a galaxy far, far away. It introduced droids and lightsabers and all that goodness. Unfortunately, ultimately led to Rian Johnson making the worst film ever made. I'm pretty sure Star Wars A New Hope is so well known that I don't really need to tell you what it's about, or even who's in it. You should know. You should have seen it. If you haven't seen it, go away. Number 34 on the list is yet another Steven Spielberg movie. That guy just knows how to make good movies. That movie is The Color Purple.
All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my brothers. Girl, child ain't safe in the family men's. But I ain't never thought I had to fight in my own house. I loves Hopper. God knows I do. But I kill him dead before I let him beat me.
The Color Purple has an all-star cast including Danny Glover, Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, loads of other people. It's one of those films you'll be uncomfortable watching because it's one of those stories. It's about a woman who survived decades of abuse and she's struggling to find her own identity. Some expert filmmaking, some amazing acting, 11 Academy Award nominations. The Color Purple is a movie you simply have to see in your lifetime. Number 33 is yet again a very iconic director. Number 33 is Alien. So far in today's video we've had a film from George Lucas, a film from Steven Spielberg, and now one from Ridley Scott. You can see this list is just getting better and better and better. Some of the best filmmakers of all time right there. But now we're focusing on the 1979 film Alien starring Sigourney Weaver. And it's considered by many as one of the greatest films ever made, and we're no different. That's why it's number 33 on the list. We're at a point in the list where I don't think I need to explain many of the stories. Chances are you know all about Alien, and if you don't know about Alien, you've probably been living under a rock, or you are an alien. So, that's a possibility. If you are an alien, let us know. Comments. No pretending. I want actual aliens in the comments. Number 32 is yet another animated film, but this animated film broke the mold, set a new standard for animated films. It's a 1995 film. Also stars Tom Hanks, so it's yet another Tom Hanks movie. That movie is Toy Story.
Ken. Whoa! Oh, wow, you flew magnificently.
I found my moving buddy.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
That wasn't flying. That was falling with style.
Toy Story is a movie so good, every animated film from now on till the end of time is going to be compared to it. For the time, the animation was astounding. It could be argued that it doesn't hold up now, especially when you see comparisons of the dogs now in Pixar films compared to dogs then, although it might just been a weird dog. A personal favourite of mine ever since I was a kid. Toy Story is one of those movies that made you a little bit paranoid as a kid about what's going on in your room with all those toys when you're not there. That sounded weird. Toy Story brought us Woody and Buzz, Mr. Potato Head, all those guys, and spawned multiple sequels, as well as was the beginning of the whole Pixar theory that all the Pixar films are linked. Great acting performances, great directing by John Lasseter, and a movie that truly broke the mold. Number 31 on the list comes all the way from 1963. The 60s was a great decade for filmmaking, as you're going to see later on in the list, and as we've already seen with stuff like Good, Bad and the Ugly. But this film from 1963 is The Great Escape. The Great Escape was directed by John Sturges and stars Steve McQueen. It's a movie about a group of Allied prisoners during World War II which plan to escape, as the title would suggest. Iconic soundtrack, great performances, a story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, and just an overall phenomenal movie. The Great Escape narrowly misses out on the top 30, but is number 31 on Movie Film's 100 Greatest Movies list. Number 30 is by one of the best filmmakers ever, in my opinion. That filmmaker is John Hughes. That movie is Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Bueller. Bueller.
Now we're getting into the iconic territory, movies that stand the test of time. And Matthew Broderick's performance as Ferris Bueller is one of those characters, one of those acting performances, and one of those movies that stands the test of time. I don't think this movie will ever not be good. Adventure of a load of kids who were basically just ditching school, stealing one guy's dad's car, going to Chicago, jumping on a float, singing, dancing, having a hell of a time. It's a movie filled with some great comedy, some very memorable lines, and a line to live your life by.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Some great life advice. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a movie you need to watch. Number 29 on the list is a movie I don't think I'm going to need to tell you too much about, but let me introduce you to my little friend. Scarface. Scarface takes number 29 on the list. A truly iconic movie. One of the best performances ever from Al Pacino, one of the most iconic characters ever in Tony Montana, a great director in Brian De Palma, and a phenomenal movie. Of course, as I've stated on the channel many times before, if you didn't know, Scarface, the 1980 version, is a reboot. We'll be getting into that on original versus reboot if you haven't already. When's this going out? The 1983 film is a hefty 2 hours and 50 minutes, but there are 2 hours and 50 minutes of your life that will not be wasted, because that is a great movie that you must watch. That being said, on to the next one. Number 28 is a movie that has a twist. That'll keep you on the edge of your seat, keep you guessing all the way through, if you haven't already had it spoiled for you, because it's probably the most spoiled movie ever. Because you all probably know who Kaiser Soze is. The movie that takes number 28 is The Usual Suspects. The 1995 film took 2 Academy Awards and is a very well told story from Bryan Singer. But if you haven't seen it, it's certainly a movie worth checking out. Moving on. Number 27 on the list, yet again, is a Martin Scorsese film. It's pretty good. He's pretty good at making movies. Number 27 is Casino.
I wanted everybody to know that things were changed around here. We had to make an example of these pricks, that the party was over. I'm just curious. I saw you shuffling your checks with your right hand. Can you do that with both hands?
No.
Can't do it with both hands?
No, sir.
Can you do it with your left hand?
Oh, I never tried.
So you're a righty?
Yeah.
Casino is one of my favourite films ever made. It's a movie that stars both Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, who always work well together, Irishman notwithstanding. Martin Scorsese, Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro. Need to say more? The 1995 film sees Robert De Niro ultimately as a casino owner. It's got a shock opening, and yet again, it's expert storytelling from an expert film director. If this one has somehow slipped under your radar, it's a must-see Martin Scorsese movie. And it definitely still won't be the last Martin Scorsese film on the list. What can I say? The guy's really good. Scorsese and Spielberg are dominating this list so far. But there is some good filmmakers out there. Let's see who's number 26. Number 26 on the list is by a little-known filmmaker by the name of Stanley Kubrick. That movie is The Shining. I almost hit the shinning.
Boy, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinning.
You mean shining.
Shh, you want to get sued?
The horror film starring Jack Nicholson based on a Stephen King novel. Even just saying those 3 things, you know how good this movie's going to be. Again, an iconic movie with some very iconic imagery. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you've seen some of the lines from it. You've seen some of the shots from it, like the 2 little girls in the corridor, maybe the blood coming down the elevator, the Here's Johnny. And of course, it's got one of the most iconic lines in all of cinema. No beer, no TV, make homework or something. The Shining, must-see movie. Even if horror isn't your thing, you will love this movie. And it will give you nightmares. In at number 25 is a movie about a shark. That movie is Jaws. While I would have loved to put Sharknado in here at number 25, I think a lot of people just wouldn't agree that it's one of the best films ever. Not everyone appreciates art. Jaws is the one movie that made the whole shark genre, because that is now a genre, because there's been The Meg, Sharknado, Three-headed shark attack. That's the best movie ever. We'll get into that at some point. Did I just spoil the whole list? Yet another Steven Spielberg movie on the list. I don't need to tell you, he's a great storyteller. He's a great filmmaker. He knows how to get the best out of his actors. And for this one, he even got a good performance out of an animatronic shark. The music from Jaws is probably the most iconic music in all of cinema. I don't even have to play a clip for you to know the music I'm referring to. Sensational movie, one of the 25 greatest ever movies. But we move on. The next movie on the list, number 24, was made in 1997. The movie was directed by Curtis Hanson and it was nominated for 9 Academy Awards. That movie is LA Confidential. Something of a cult classic, an all-star lineup including Russell Crowe, Kevin Basinger, Danny DeVito, Kevin Spacey, many, many more. The film is set in 1950s Los Angeles. The film is about 3 different policemen with their own style of policing who ultimately have to investigate a murder. They each bring their own element to it, their own brand of justice. It's a good movie. The film won 2 awards from its 9 Academy Award nominations. 9 Academy Award nominations tell you this movie's pretty damn good. And that's all I have to say about that. Next on the list, at number 23, is what many people consider to be the greatest animated film of all time. We've already had Toy Story, which I consider to be the greatest animated film of all time. Many people consider this to be even better. That movie is Spirited Away. The movie won the Academy Award for the Best Animated Film in 2003, despite the film being made in 2001. Definitely a cult classic for anybody who loves anime. This is perhaps the pinnacle within feature films, although maybe it's too mainstream now. The interesting thing about this type of animation from very clever creators is you've got an endless world of possibilities. Just like with sci-fi, you can do pretty much anything, although you're not limited by what you can do with special effects. It's just how good your drawing is. That's the great thing about animation, and it was used to its fullest in this movie. Even if anime is not your thing, even if animated films are not your thing, I guarantee you'll enjoy Spirited Away. It's a little wacky, it's a little unique, but that's what makes it great. Well, we've had 3 films already in this video, and that one was being by Martin Scorsese. We didn't get 4 into it though, because the next one's by Martin Scorsese. It's Taxi Driver. For all the movies by Martin Scorsese that we've had on this list, it probably just makes me look like a major Martin Scorsese fanboy. The guy makes really good movies, I've said it time and time again, which makes it more astounding that he only has 1 Academy Award for Best Director, because he's made some of the greatest films of all time, and Taxi Driver is certainly one of the greatest movies ever made. An outstanding performance from Robert De Niro playing a taxi driver, slightly unhinged taxi driver. He's a veteran back from war. It's a really cool story. And yet again, is one of those movies that has one of the most quoted, one of the most memorable scenes of all time.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, then who the hell else are you talking to? Talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
Once again, Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese combined to make an outstanding movie. That being said, I don't think I need to say too much more about the movie. We'll move on to the next one. Number 21 on the list comes all the way from 1954, which should give you a hint as to the director, because the director is perhaps the godfather of filmmaking. The director was Alfred Hitchcock, and the movie was Rear Window. Alfred Hitchcock, as I've said, basically he's the godfather of modern day cinema. Without Alfred Hitchcock, who knows what cinema would be like? He pioneered so many filmmaking techniques and he inspired so many filmmakers. Maybe we wouldn't have had some of our most beloved movies if Alfred Hitchcock never became a filmmaker. You know, maybe he wanted to work at McDonald's instead. The world would be a very different place. At least the world of cinema. Rear Window is about a man who's wheelchair bound, he's a photographer, and he ends up spying on his neighbours, ultimately leading him to the conclusion that one of his neighbours has committed murder. There was later a movie made called Disturbia, starring Shia LaBeouf, which is basically the same thing under a different name, but they were never going to do it as good as the original. The original starred Grace Kelly and James Stewart in some fantastic performances in an Alfred Hitchcock movie from 1954. Hell of a movie. Number 20. This was a tough decision because now we're in the final 20. These have to be some amazing movies. And the last episode, we finished with a film from 1954. And we're going to follow that up with another movie from 1954. A movie that starred Marlon Brando. That movie is On the Waterfront. The 1954 film was directed by Elia Kazan. He's the man who directed films like East of Eden and A Streetcar Named Desire. But for this video, we're focusing on the Waterfront, a truly iconic movie. The film is about an ex-prize fighter who's fighting against corruption. It won 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture in 1955. It was up against the film we featured in the last episode, Rear Window. On the Waterfront took home the award and 7 other awards. Being nominated for 8 Academy Awards is one thing, but winning 8 awards, that's a whole other level. If you have not seen On the Waterfront, make sure it's the next movie you watch, because you will not regret it. Moving on. So, on the list, number 21 and number 20 were both from 1950. But let's delve back further into the history of cinema for number 19, because this film was all the way from 1942. That's a long time ago. That movie is Casablanca. The film starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman is considered by many as one of the greatest films ever made. Some people will probably be surprised that it's not higher on this list, because it's held in such high esteem by so many people. If you look at classic movies, this is probably high on your list of your favourite movies. The film, despite being so old, is so well known and still has some very iconic scenes and iconic dialogue. Here's looking at you, kid. Casablanca, like On the Waterfront, should be high on your list of movies to watch. Whether you've seen it before or not, it's still a great movie. Number 18 on the list, I believe, is a second Ridley Scott film. Number 18 is Gladiator, a personal favourite of mine. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Of course I do, it's on the list. The film starring Russell Crowe is a phenomenal story that'll have you gripped from the very start. I still remember the very first time I watched it and I was just entranced. I couldn't pull myself away from the screen because the story was so engaging and so big. The film just has a huge scale to it. The film was nominated for 12 Academy Awards. 12. Now either they just made terrible movies in the year 2000 or Gladiator was so sensational it triumphed over all of them. It didn't win all 12, but they did win Best Picture and a couple of other ones. And it's a hell of a movie. Now on this list, we've heavily featured films from the likes of Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg and even Christopher Nolan, but another man we featured heavily throughout this list is Robert Zemeckis, and we haven't even featured his best film yet. Number 17 is another movie that broke the mold for its genre, because no movie will ever do time travel as well as Back to the Future. Now it could be argued you could put in any of the Back to the Future films in here. I think they all fit inside the top 20. Maybe the third one isn't as good as the first two, but that's only because the first two were so outstanding. Amazing performances from Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox, fantastic chemistry between the two, and the best example of time travel in movies and keeping it entertaining at the same time. Back to the Future, phenomenal storytelling, great science fiction, and the only good use of time travel in any film franchise ever. Big claim. I'm probably forgetting one that does it really well, but to me, there's very few films that do time travel right, and Back to the Future definitely did it right. For me, Back to the Future, one of the best movies ever made. Since we've gotten into the top 25, we featured a number of films from the 50s, and we're back there again, because number 16 is 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men, made in 1957, is set around a jury in a court case. We only ever see the jury, we don't see the court, don't see the plaintiff for legal terms. The majority of the jurors believe that the bad guy, can't think of the word out for some reason, that the bad guy did the crime. They're going to sentence him to death basically. But there's one man who's out to prove them all wrong. It's a fascinating movie that's all centered basically within one room. It doesn't have fancy effects or an amazing soundtrack or even color. It's just phenomenal performances, phenomenal storytelling, fairly basic filmmaking, but it's a film that shows just how powerful a good story and great acting can be. If you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, this is one I highly recommend putting on the top of your list. I would recommend putting a lot of films on the top of that list. That list is getting pretty big. It's probably about 100 movies. Every movie on this list, I believe, is a fantastic movie, but 12 Angry Men is a standout, and that's why it's inside the top 20. Number 15 is a movie by a filmmaker called Quentin Tarantino. We've already had Reservoir Dogs. Number 15 is Pulp Fiction. Easily one of the most quotable movies, one of the most memorable movies, some of the best visuals, an amazing cast, great directing, great writing, great story, great performances. What can I say? It's got some weird bits in there too, like the paw chop stuff, and yeah, that'll scare you. But overall, a great movie. Even if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, chances are you can probably quote some lines from the movie. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about Pulp Fiction. In at 14 is a movie by an iconic director which we've yet to feature on the list. That director is Francis Ford Coppola. And it won't be the last time we feature him on the list. We'll feature him at least once more. The movie for number 14 is Apocalypse Now. A movie that stars Martin Sheen, Robert Duvall, Marlon Brando, Harrison Ford, Lawrence Fishburne, many more. The film comes from 1979. The film is about a US soldier who's tasked with assassinating a rogue colonel who sees himself as a god. It's quite a wild ride. It's a hell of a movie, great storytelling. I think I'm saying about all the movies now on the list, but it's a Coppola film. It's always going to be amazing. It seems as we go along the list, the films are just getting more and more iconic. We just had a Coppola film, now we've got yet another Hitchcock film. And no, it's not Psycho. Number 13 is North by Northwest. North by Northwest was made in 1959, made before Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock film yet again. I've mentioned many times, he's a pretty damn good filmmaker. The film stars Cary Grant. The film is about a New York advertising agent who's mistaken for a government agent by a group of foreign spies, which leads to a very interesting adventure. Considering this film was made in 1959, it still looks better than most films that are made today in 2020. I think that tells you everything you need to know about North by Northwest. The next movie on the list, number 12, stars Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta, and was directed by Martin Scorsese. Strange to have him on the list, isn't it? That movie, of course, is Goodfellas. Now, how Martin Scorsese did not win the Academy Award for the Best Director for this movie, I do not know, because Goodfellas is one of the best storytelling films out there. It's a mafia-based film, or a mob-based film. I'm not going to throw in any spoilers for you on this one, because you need to go see this movie. If you haven't seen Goodfellas, it's going to become one of your favourite movies of all time. Amazing performances, as you would expect, from the likes of Joe Pesci, who won an Academy Award for his performance.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Not just... You know how you tell a story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the f*** am I funny? What the f*** is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Get the fuck out of here, Tommy.
I almost had him.
Great performance from Robert De Niro, who always does well when he works with Scorsese. And Ray Liotta steals the show with a great main character performance. It's got twists and turns, it's got some great action, it's got some swearing, it's got everything a movie needs. Number 11 on the list. This is where it gets really tough on the list, because this is where we had to pick what missed out on the top 10, and I very much want to put this in the top 10. I want to put this in the top 5. This is one of the best movies I've watched in recent years. We listed a lot of classic films in the last couple of videos, but this is a more recent one coming from just 2017. But yet again is an iconic director, this time in the shape of Guillermo del Toro. You may have already realized that the movie is The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water, the first time I watched it, blew my mind, because it's visually one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. The visuals are just absolutely stunning in it. The special effects are amazing. And the acting performance, especially from Sally Field, is one of the best I've ever seen.
When he looks at me, the way he looks at me, he doesn't know what I lack or how I am incomplete. He sees me for what I am, as I am.
A combination of a great actor, great director, great story, no over-reliance on CGI, and an overall really unique story made The Shape of Water a refreshing change of pace in 2017. I think it was 2018 when it was nominated for its Academy Awards. Do you know how many Academy Awards it was nominated for? 13. 13 Academy Awards. Wow. So of course, it goes without saying that every movie in the final 10 is an iconic movie from an iconic director with some iconic actors. And number 10, we've technically already featured one of its quadrilogy. Let's just pretend it's a trilogy. I try not to put in too many sequels and prequels and stuff like that. For the most part, I've tried to keep one of each film where possible. But some films, some series just deserve to be featured multiple times. And this film features an iconic character with an iconic director in a movie that you have to watch every Christmas for some reason. It's just always on at Christmas. That movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yet another Steven Spielberg movie on the list. Yet another Harrison Ford movie on the list. He's featured quite a lot on this list. It's almost as if he's a very good actor. Raiders of the Lost Ark. For me, the best Indiana Jones film. The filmmaking is on another level. Steven Spielberg as absolute best. One of the best adventures in a film ever. One of the best characters ever in Indiana Jones. And an amazing performance from Harrison Ford. 9 Academy Award nominations. A couple of wins spread in there too. I would go tell you to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I'm pretty sure everybody on the entire planet has seen Raiders of the Lost Ark and everybody loves it because it's amazing. Now, recently, probably in the last 4 or 5 videos, Alfred Hitchcock has become no stranger to this list. And what would this list be without Psycho? Psycho, the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock thriller, takes number 9 on the list. We featured it on Original vs. Reboot. It was made all the way back in 1960 and still holds up as a great movie, a very enjoyable movie. One of the most iconic acting performances ever from Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. And a pretty damn good legacy from a movie made 60 years ago. Well deserves a place in the top 10. Let's move on to number 8. So far we've had a Spielberg film and a Hitchcock film. A man we haven't featured in quite a while on the list, probably like 2 or 3 videos, is Christopher Nolan. The movie we have decided to feature at number 8 is a superhero movie made by Christopher Nolan. So you can probably guess. It's The Dark Knight. I don't need to tell you. An amazing movie. Now, we haven't featured many superhero movies on this list. In fact, the only one we have featured is Batman Begins. Because in my opinion, the Dark Knight series is the greatest series of superhero films that have ever been made, and that includes the MCU. The Dark Knight in particular wasn't just a superhero movie. It took superhero movies to a whole new level. As you'd imagine, it's a dark film. It took Batman from less of a comic book approach to more of a real world approach. Made it cool. This film, we didn't focus so much on the bat nipples and the bat credit card. We focused more on the cool gadgets, the great acting, the great bad guy, arguably one of the best villains ever in cinema with Heath Ledger's Joker.
You have nothing to threaten me with. Nothing to do with all your strength. Don't worry, I'm gonna tell you where they are. Both of them. And that's the point. You'll have to choose. He's at 250 52nd Street, and she's on Avenue X. That's just it.
And I fully think this film deserves its place inside the top 10. I'm sure there's people that won't agree with that. Those people are all wrong. Just think about where we are right now. We're down to the final 7 movies. That means these movies, these 7 movies, are 7 of the greatest cinematic masterpieces that have ever been made, according to this YouTube channel. All the movies from this point on are iconic. But this movie is perhaps the most iconic. iconic music, iconic actors, iconic story, iconic characters, directing, script, story, iconic everything. That movie is The Godfather. I'm sure many people would have it inside the top 5, and it was a struggle not to put it in the top 5, but it takes number 7. The Francis Ford Coppola film, starring Marlon Brando and Al Pacino and many other people, is perhaps the greatest gangster film of all time. A movie that sparked one of the greatest trilogies of films ever, although Godfather 3 is a bit, it's still pretty good, but it's not as good as the others. Great performances from everybody throughout. I still won't buy oranges out on the street anywhere, just in case I get assassinated. But that's just me. Of course, it's got some of the most iconic dialogue ever, some of the most quoted dialogue ever, such as, "I'm going to make you an offer, bet you won't refuse it." That was spot on, right? I don't think I need to say too much more about The Godfather. Everybody knows it's amazing. If for some reason you've lived under a rock and you haven't seen The Godfather, man, there's no hope for you. No hope. Number 6. The final entry for today. The final film, the one that misses out on the top 5, is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Now, Star Wars is easily one of the most iconic franchises ever. We've already featured Return of the Jedi and A New Hope on this list. It was a hard choice choosing whether we went with Empire Strikes Back or The Phantom Menace. But ultimately we went with Empire. Why? Because even though it's a Star Wars movie, even if you strip away the fact that it's a Star Wars movie, it's still an amazing movie. This is the movie that cemented Darth Vader as one of the best villains of all time. This is the movie that got us emotionally invested in the Skywalker franchise. This is one of the movies where the director made the brave choice of having the bad guys win. It doesn't happen very often. Some great storytelling, great acting, a surprise ending, one of the greatest revelations of films ever. When you watched Empire Strikes Back for the very first time, you hadn't seen it, you find out who Luke's father is. Well, I was blown away when it was Chewie. That prick. Empire Strikes Back, undoubtedly one of the greatest movies ever. In at number 5, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The 2004 Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet film, directed by Michael Gondry, might be a surprise inclusion in the top 5. But if you've seen this movie, you know just how spectacular this movie is. One of the most unique rom-coms? Rom-dramas, I guess? It's a romantic film, it's a comedy film, it's a dramatic film, and it's even got a little bit of sci-fi in there. Arguably, and in my opinion, definitely, Jim Carrey's best performance. A true icon of cinema, Jim Carrey never puts in a bad performance, really. If you've seen the Netflix documentary Jim and Andy about when he was in Man on the Moon, you see just how in depth that guy goes with some of his roles. With Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, he takes it to a whole new level. It's an absolute travesty that Jim Carrey was not Oscar nominated for his performance in this movie. Kate Winslet, his co-star, was nominated but didn't win her award, which again is a huge shame because Kate Winslet, fantastic actor, been in some great movies, been in some great romantic movies, but this one is on a whole different level, and her chemistry with Jim Carrey, fantastic. I don't want to give away too much about the story, because I want people to go and enjoy this movie not knowing too much about it if you haven't seen it. Go into it with very little expectations, although I've put it in top 5 so expectations are going up, but I went into it knowing nothing about it, other than Jim Carrey's in it. So I thought to myself, it must be really funny. No, it does have its comedic elements, but this is very much a dramatic performance from Jim Carrey. A fantastic performance, an unexpected performance. An Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, personally, is one of the greatest movies I've ever watched. And I hope you will give it a chance and experience the greatness. And then let me know in the comments just how great you thought it was. And if you didn't think it was great. Moving on. Number 4 is a very poignant and important movie in the history of humanity. Big claim. Big claim. And it's also the final Steven Spielberg movie on this list. We featured many Spielberg movies on the list so far, but this one was a phenomenal film, a phenomenal story based on real events with an important historical significance. This movie is Schindler's List. The Schindler's List, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil anything about it because you need to go watch this movie. Of course, the events in the movie are based around some of the worst events that ever happened to humanity. Fantastic direction, fantastic story, fantastic filmmaking, great performance from Liam Neeson, and a must-watch movie. Now, we're into the serious waters because we're down to the final three. The final three, the three greatest movies ever made. Number 3 on the list is a Frank Darabont movie made in 1994. The film stars Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins as Andy Dufresne. That movie, of course, is The Shawshank Redemption. Considered by many people to be the best film ever made. It's only number 3 on this list, but it's a damn good movie. And 3 out of 100 is a pretty good score. Bronze medal. Fantastic. Frank Darabont, of course, has featured on the list before with his fantastic movie The Green Mile. But he stepped it up to a whole new level, even though this movie came before the other one. Definitely Frank Darabont's best work, and just happens to be one of the greatest movies ever made. The movie, as you can tell from the title, is about a Shawshank who's redeemed. Wait, isn't it right? Shawshank Redemption. Is there anybody that hasn't seen Shawshank Redemption? I'm not going to go tell you to go watch it because you've probably seen it if you haven't seen it. We have so far only featured one movie from the 40s. From 1942 to be precise. That movie was Casablanca. Well, number 2 on the list comes from even earlier. Number 2 on the list comes from 1941. That means this movie's very old. This movie was made in the middle of World War II. So was Casablanca. But number 2 was directed and starred Orson Welles. You may already realise that movie is Citizen Kane. A movie which is almost 80 years old is still held in such high esteem by filmmakers, film lovers, film critics, filmographers, loads of people in film. Everybody knows what a great movie Citizen Kane was. It's a classic movie. It's in black and white. If you don't like black and white films, I've said this before, some people out there don't like black and white films. I don't know why. You have to give these movies a chance and you'll find some amazing, amazing movies as we featured on the list. Narrowly missing out on the number 1 spot. It was a very tough choice to put this second. It was a very, very close contender for the number 1 spot, as was Shawshank. This will be the final time I say this on the list, but if you have not seen Citizen Kane, it is simply a must-watch movie. You can't go through life without seeing Citizen Kane. It simply must be seen. Whether you're a filmmaker, a film lover, or a casual person who likes flickering images on a screen, whether you break it down as a TV series and watch it in small bite-sized chunks like YouTube videos, or you watch it all the way through, I guarantee you will love Citizen Kane. I just hope they don't butcher it with a remake sometime. And you can only ever watch a movie for the first time once. Unless, of course, amnesia. And then you get to watch them all over again. Find out about Darth Vader. Find out about the Joker. Watch The Dark Knight for the first time. Watch Eternal Sunshine for the first time. Whoops, Take Manhattan. All the great movies that were on the list. Along the way, we've mentioned films from some iconic directors. We've had Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Frank Darabont, Milos Forman. I'm trying to think them out, they're not coming to my brain. They're all in there. Frank Oz, Muppets again. As well as that, some fantastic actors, in particular Tom Hanks. How many of these movies feature Tom Hanks? A hell of a lot. A hell of a lot. That guy is a very special actor, and hopefully he's going to make many, many more movies. But I think I've procrastinated enough. I've dragged it out quite a bit now. You know, even put an extra video in the middle. I considered putting the bloopers out first, before the number 1, which technically would have meant the number 1 video going out on the 1st of January. That could have been cool, but I guess I missed out on that. Bloopers will be out next week. So here we go. The number 1 movie, the greatest ever movie on Movie Film's 100 Greatest Movies list is...
My father taught me many things here. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. My offer is this. Nothing. If anything in this life is certain, if history's taught us anything, it says you can kill anyone. I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
Admit it, when the screen went black, you thought I did it again. I considered it, you know, stretches out for like 6 videos. But we're finally there. The Godfather Part 2, undisputable, undeniable, unarguable, that wasn't a word, undeniably the greatest movie ever made. Now I'm sure some people will deny it. They'll say Citizen Kane's better or Shawshank's better. And that's the great thing about movies. Everybody has their own favourite. Godfather Part 2 is a very special movie. Of course, you've got a very young Robert De Niro in there. You've got Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, many other people. It's a gangster movie. That's always pretty cool. Francis Ford Coppola. It's the second in a movie. It's a sequel. A sequel is the greatest movie of all time. I wish Star Wars could have learned from that. Technically they did, they got number 6. But you know, sequels to the original series could have been better. The Godfather, of course, based on a book by Mario Puzo. Now The Godfather Part 1 already featured on the list. And as I mentioned further back in the list, I tried not to put in too many sequels. I only put in one Back to the Future film, when I could have put in all 3. I did put in all the Star Wars original films, but I didn't put in The Phantom Menace as much as I wanted to. I didn't put in Sharknado 2, or Sharknado 1, or Sharknado 3. We put in The Godfather Part 2 because it's a standout movie. Weirdly, in my research, I found that on IMDb, The Godfather Part 1 has a higher rating than Godfather Part 2. The Godfather Part 1 is a phenomenal movie. That's the one with Marlon Brando in it. It's got some fantastic action. Both films have fantastic action, fantastic scenes, memorable dialogue. But The Godfather 2, I believe, takes it to a whole new level and is definitely Al Pacino's greatest performance. And as well, we had those heart-wrenching moments with Fredo. We all know what you did, Fredo. We all know what you did.
You're nothing to me now. You're not a brother. You're not a friend. I don't want to know you or what you do. I don't want to see you at the hotels. I don't want you near my house. When you see our mother, I want to know a day in advance so I won't be there.
If, for some reason, you haven't seen the Godfather trilogy, watch Godfather Part 1, watch Godfather Part 2, pretend Godfather Part 3, you watched it and it's good. Godfather Part 2, in my opinion, in our opinion, in movie film's opinion, the greatest ever movie. Disagree? Talk to us in those comments. What do you think should have been number 1? Do you agree with number 1? Let us know your thoughts on the entire list, and hopefully during this countdown you had fun, you interacted, you told us what your favourite films are. As I said earlier, if you followed along with this journey, if you watched all the videos, the entire list, thank you so much for your support. It means the world for me as I try to grow this YouTube channel into something. I give out about a lot of movies on this channel, so it was good to finally have a moment where I could take some time to appreciate the movies I love. 105 of the movies I love. Hopefully you've enjoyed the list. If you haven't,